What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video lesson. We're going from zero to producer in 90 days with Ableton Live 10 Suite. Ableton, big thanks, has extended their free trial out to 90 days. So while we're stuck at home in quarantine and isolation, we can at least stay artistic and creative and productive with some dope software. Let's quickly review what we talked about in the last video. Last time, we were learning all about Operator, really cool synthesizer that comes with Ableton Suite. We were talking about the overview of synthesizer, all the different buttons and what they do, and then we learned to make 3 really cool sounds that I frequently use or make different versions of those same kind of sounds in a lot of my music, and that was like a vibrato, sustained 808 sound. I showed some secrets to my custom wobble bass that I make with Operator, and we made this kind of VHS lo-fi sounding synth for chords and pads. Well, this video is going to be all about this concept of groove. As producers, we often spend time using the tools in Ableton to recreate the sounds of real people playing musical instruments. But some of those tools, like the timing grid and the quantize, some of those can take that human feeling away, even if we don't want them to. A lot of different styles of music require a thing that's called swing or shuffle, which means that some notes get to be played longer or shorter than other notes, even though their notation shows that they should be the same length. Maybe it's a 2 8th notes, but one of them gets played like a dotted 8th note and the other one only gets played like a 16th note. The point is that there's all different ways that people play their musical rhythms, all those different types of styles of how those note values are played. Those are what we're referring to when we're talking about groove. So I wanted to talk about 3 ways in Ableton that we can change the groove of our rhythms and bring some of that human element, that human musician feel back into what we're doing. So let's look at the first example, and that is the Ableton Groove Pool. So I've got a drum beat that I pre-made here, really simple kick snare with some hi-hats. So everything has equal note values. We've got hi-hats here on our 8th notes. We've got a 16th kick leading into our downbeat. And what I want to do is I want to use Ableton's Groove Pool to change this up. Groove Pool is probably the most accessible tool to add groove, swing, or shuffle to our rhythms. So all we have to do is go to our clip view, which is where we're looking right now, and we have to press the hot swap button over here next to this menu that says Groove. That'll pull up our Groove Pool, and we'll be able to go through here and select a couple different grooves and try some stuff out. If you are listening to equal spaced notes, like we have with our hi-hats here, how will it change the timing of those? 50 is like kind of mild, and we go all the way down here to 75. And that's really adding a lot of swing. So let's start on the low side. All you got to do is double click, and it adds that swing, and then we should be able to hear a little bit of a difference now. That's a little subtle. Let's kick it up to 65. Now we can really hear that that sound is changing. All right, let's go over here to the hip hop one and let's try a couple of these. So I like that NY Cut 1. It's doing some cool stuff here with our kick drums. So we can either keep this in the Groove Pool, we can change different clips to have different grooves. If we were to split this up, we could have one groove in the first half and a different groove in the second half. So let's do that. Let's go back to one of our MPC ones that we were listening to, 57. I'll just pick a random one. Really important button is this commit button right here down next to your Groove Pool. So right now, our notes still show that everything is equal spaced, and even though that's not the sound that we're hearing because we've got this groove applied, if we hit the commit button, then it will permanently move those notes to the left or to the right so that the notes reflect the sound of the groove. So you'll see when I hit that button, our kicks moved a little bit. Some of these kicks over here moved a little bit. Let's look over here with our MPC swing. Click that, you can see our hi-hats, and some of those kicks move quite a bit. Pretty cool, nice and easy. Hot swap, you can always go back and change it. Just a really easy way to add some groove without having to do a whole lot. All right, let's move on to groove tip number 2. This one's called odd swing. Little bit more complex to set up, but very, very unique. What we're going to be doing is we're going to use our MIDI stretch marker in order to move our MIDI notes around, grab an odd number of notes, and make that odd number of notes fit into an even number of spaces. First, we're going to start with a quintuplet swing and listen to that. So we're going to need to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can see here right before our last note, we get the MIDI stretch marker. Just grab that, drag the whole thing. You can see now we've got 5 notes in the space of where there normally would only be 4 or 2 or whatever, an even number nonetheless. And so now we need to, like every other hi-hat, just delete them. Or if we press the 0 key, we can just turn them off. And then now I'm going to copy and paste these over. And this was another way that we can create some swing. Maybe we can add these doubles back in. Kind of like a more strange and unique one. That's an example of quintuplet swing. You could try different combinations of these if you wanted to. It gets really weird really fast. So let's do septuplet swing now. So we're going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes, because remember that eighth note is where the MIDI stretch marker will start at the beginning of that. So now we'll drag those 7 back here. We can lose this last 8th one. And then we'll get rid of this one, and this one. We'll just try a couple things and see what we like the best. That one was kind of cool. Let's try a different combination. Maybe we'll get rid of that one and that one and that one. And we'll try that. There's no right answers. We're just going to experiment with a couple things until we find something we like. That one was kind of funny too. All right, so there's an option there for odd swing. That was with 7 notes. Of course, if you wanted to, you could do it with 9 or 10 or 11. Odd numbers are going to give you the most unique, of course, but grab 1, get rid of 2, leave 1, get rid of 2, leave 1, get rid of 2, leave 1, get rid of those ones. Let's see what that sounds like. That's with 11 notes in the space of where 4 would normally be. I actually liked the 11 note one. That was kind of a cool groove. Let's look at tip number 3. This one is a little different of a technique. So we did the first 2 with drums. Now we want to talk about how we can create groove without drum elements. In a lot of genres of dance music, house is an example, dubstep is an example, drum and bass is an example. A lot of times the kick and snare patterns tend to be really, really repetitive and tend to be really, really on the beat. In dubstep, it's common that you have a kick and snare back and forth, just a boom, clap, boom, clap. With house music, sometimes it's just a kick drum on all 4 beats. So we have to rely on other elements, sometimes percussion, but oftentimes other non-percussion and non-drum instruments to give us some groove information. So I wanted to use a really glitchy bass sound here as an example. All kinds of weird sounds, but we're gonna like split that up and we're gonna split it into different notes that we can play separately. And then we're gonna use a drum clip to create a groove from the drums, but we're just gonna use the MIDI notes that the drum clip creates to trigger the bass sound. So the weird glitchy bass sound is going to get chopped up here with our simpler instrument. I've already done that. As you can see, all these nice, really short, glitchy sounds. And down here, we've got a funk drum rhythm. And all of those hi-hat sounds in between to kind of be taken up by those bass sounds. So we can just use audio to MIDI, and we can just drag this onto our slice track here that has the sliced up bass notes. And it's going to ask us, what type of clip is this? Harmony, melody, or drums? In this case, it is drums. Even though we're not using it for drums, we want Ableton to slice up this MIDI like it's drums. So we can get rid of our kick and our snare notes here, and we're just going to normalize the velocity of all of these notes so they all trigger at the same volume. Let's mute a couple things here, and if we unfold, I believe we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different slices. All right, so that's moving really fast. I've just separated each of those notes onto their own lane, and each one of those, it's happening like several times within one bar. So what I want to do is select A, and I want to press this ×2 button. It's going to stretch all the notes out so that they're twice as long. And you can see some of this stuff is off the grid here. And I'm experimenting a little bit. Don't necessarily know how this is going to turn out, but it's a cool exercise, and it's definitely an easy way to extract groove with that audio to MIDI function. So let's grab some kicks and snares and put a little drum beat pattern together. So we've got some like very swing kind of bass sounds going on here, and I think it would be really cool to maybe take a tambourine or some type of percussion thing and then offset that with something really, really on the beat. It can be kind of off-putting sounding, or it can be really, really cool when you have two notes that it is implied that they kind of are happening on the same beat, but that the actual notes are like separated in time, so they're sort of out of time with each other. A lot of times that can be the thing that gives it that unique human feel. Just a very, very short little clip there. We would obviously have to do more to turn that into a whole song, but the important thing is that the technique is really, really easy. Grab something that you like the sound of. Awesome for some trap and dubstep stuff. I just found that sample somewhere on the internet randomly. Throw that into a simpler instrument so that you can use the slice mode, and then just move these little blue markers around until you've got each one of those sounds separated in the way that you want to trigger it. And then we used this funky drum groove to generate the swing feel from the hi-hats, and then use that for our bass. And you could do that for anything. You could do that for chords, you could do that for a vocal chop, you could do it for percussion, whatever you want. It's that easy to add groove to all of your different sounds. So let's talk about a couple tips before we get out of here. I would recommend that you don't use the same groove technique for everything. Even if your vibe is that you really love going into the groove pools, even if that's the case, just know there's like so many different types of grooves in here. And again, if you want that live human feel, almost no band ever all hits the same beat at exactly the same time. So applying those different grooves across different instruments will kind of spread that landing pad, if you will, of when the note hits, spread that out a little bit. And that will really give you that human feel if you use different grooves. If you used an MPC 55 for a percussion element, use a 65 or a different groove for something else to help get them out of time. And the groove pool works with audio clips as well. So all of these transient markers and warp markers, Ableton will pick those up and try to place them somewhere. And if you add a groove to that, it will try to place those in according with the groove that you choose, which is really cool. Well, that's all we got for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching another video. We've only got a few videos left before the school year is out and we're on summer vacation officially. I'm so excited. I'm also excited that Ableton is giving us this 90-day free trial of their software. I hope you're staying productive and staying creative. I hope these videos are helping spark some new ideas so that you can make your own beats. Hope you're making a lot of those beats. Happy producing. Peace out. I'll see you in the next video.